Thank you all for being here. Didn't I say that last year too?
Yes, you said that last year.
Including you, Sean. Well, who's first?
The facility, how is that coming along, and the status of the football team moving in, and kind of the plan of that?
Yeah, it's going well. It's also been a challenge. I think, and I had to remind myself, we have 315,000 square feet. I mean, it's a massive facility, and so, one of the things we're really trying to figure out, and Coach Rule's really passionate about, is we don't want to do anything that disrupts the football team. And so there's certain areas that are completed, some others that we're waiting on a couple things, rather than whether we all get in prior to camp or we wait till after camp breaks, we're working on that final date. We just don't want any disruption. So it's soon. The rest of the stuff, as I talked about earlier, maybe the training table and some of that's probably more at the end of the calendar year. But it's a Herculean task, and everybody's all hands on deck. Our partners in the construction and project management team and internal team are working really hard to do it appropriately, but we just, obviously being the first year and everything, we don't need anything to disrupt the team. So, and we also have great facilities where we currently reside, right? So,
would you get the locker room then and the weight room before the season?
Well, obviously the locker room for sure. The weight room,
okay.
The weight room, I'm not exactly sure, and I'm not trying to be coy. I don't want to give false information. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't gotten an update, but we do have a date certain that gives us a little 2-week window to ensure, and so we're just really working with football. We want them to help think through and drive how they want it to operate.
Trev, what's jumped out to you the most about Matt Rule since December?
Well, I would just say, Coach Rule is the guy that I thought he was, when we made the hire. He's extraordinarily hardworking. He's very intelligent. He's very strategic. I think he's authentic. And more importantly, I think he really cares about football players and helping them develop and grow. And he's very passionate about their health and safety. And you probably read about the grass fields and some of these changes. Recovery, and so I'll just say I think he's been a great help to me. I've learned a lot from him. I think our other coaches have benefited from having him around, and I think he's a good culture person. He's a great communicator, and now we're all hoping he's a really great football coach.
In that regard, what in particular are you looking for from the team on autumn Saturdays?
Well, again, I'm not going to get back into the Steve Sipple quarter of number of wins, but look, we have high expectations here. We're not trying to, we expect to be very, very competitive. At the end of the day, I think it's also realistic to recognize that this is our first year. We have a whole new coaching staff. We have a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, and a lot of new players. So we just want to get better. I'm serious about what we talked about last couple years. It doesn't take many Nebraska fans and our alumni and all of you to look at a team and say, is that a Nebraska team? Is that a team that pays attention to the details? Is that a team that's physical and tough and fundamentally sound and plays as a unit, has discipline and accountability in the program? To me, those are the small fundamental things that lead to what we all desire. And so I think Matt and his staff, first of all, I think Matt has done a great job, Steve, of surrounding himself with really good people. Not just coaches, but it's well public. We have a lot of people. It's the way it is now in college football. But these are good people that work really hard. They have a very clear vision and a clear plan. So I like who Matt surrounded himself with, and I think he's built a really good culture in what he can do this summer. The players, I talk to the players, I see them. They really appreciate the level of attention, detail, and accountability that Matt has brought to the program.
Back to something you said a little bit ago that you've learned from Matt. What have you learned from him?
Well, there's just different styles of leadership. There's communication. Matt is very strategic. I watch how, and it's not necessarily we're in a classroom and but I always believe, I think you can always learn as a leader. I observe all our coaches, not just Matt, but I watch him interact with the student athletes. This concept of coaching players hard, but earning their trust prior to that has been really meaningful to me. He and his staff really invest in the players, like getting to know them as people. And I think sometimes we forget about that. Like these are people, and we all have challenges. And Matt just makes such a commitment, not just in the players, but his own staff. He develops young coaches. You know, I think just observation more than anything else. And we spend a lot of time together, and we're working on our relationship. Obviously, I think it's really important. I work really hard on my relationship with Ted Carter. You know, I think it's important that that the people that are tasked with making decisions have a general agreement and understanding of where everybody's coming from. So in that respect, it's been really good.
Trev, when you watch Matt at this event, like on the stage up there, and see him representing Nebraska on a national level, what does that do as far as validating some of the things that you thought about him and how he would be a representative of your brand going back to last November?
Well, it's really important to me. You know, I mean, I've said this before, but in large part, I feel like part of my responsibility is to, you know, to work hard to protect, maintain the integrity of, and advance, you know, the thing that's on my lapel, right? And that's what we're tasked with doing. And so, you know, I think Nebraskans and our alumni are that's really important to them, you know, and so having somebody who understands that and embraces it. Look, Matt's really good at it, you know, and but it's still work, you know, and he takes very seriously his responsibility. And we talked about this in the hiring process. You know, I said, I don't think you don't understand what Nebraska's like. This is different, right? Like, I come here the last 2 years, and we know what our record is, and all of my colleagues are going, who are all those people? Like, we haven't won 6 straight national championships, but that's the kind of coverage and support we get from all of you. But Matt understands that. He embraces it. He's good at it. And he understands the responsibility that he has as the head coach of the football program and what that means to the state of Nebraska. That's a burden that not everybody is willing or able to carry.
The stadium renovations, I know you guys have started that process. Any idea when an update or some more communication on that will come out?
Yeah, we're working hard. You mentioned the Go Big project. You know, the really interesting thing about the Go Big project is it's really opening a world of opportunities over at the stadium. So it's really been the catalyst to rethink some of those spaces that are being vacated. And so we've got a great executive team. Our hope is that I think it's October 5th, is we have a Board of Regent meeting. Our job is we're tasked with presenting a vision, a plan, and an opportunity to execute a vision on Memorial Stadium that we'll present to Ted Carter and the Board of Regents on October 5th. And so part of why it's a Herculean task is we're not just talking about the stadium itself, but you're talking about the backfill from the Go Big project. So you think about 315,000 square feet coming online, there's a significant amount of programming that's leaving the stadium. So how do we rethink that? I think we have some very good entrepreneurial ideas about I'm really interested in how we can activate Memorial Stadium more than 7 Saturdays a year. And I think a lot of us in college athletics are thinking that way, looking for new entrepreneurial revenue streams. You know, I think the outdoor volleyball game, the Garth, I mean, those types of things, and how do we think about that? How do we integrate academics into our thinking? So we'll have a good plan. We've got good progress, but I'm guessing it'll be public shortly before that board meeting.
Thank you, Trev.
So
there
was at one point there was tossed around the idea, maybe not coming from you, but maybe from fans, that there would be a neutral site game in the non-conference. Is there any truth to that moving forward, that maybe you would entertain a neutral site game? Maybe not Ireland, but you know what I mean. Maybe somewhere a little closer to home.
I enjoyed Ireland until later in the game, but no, I think we're interested in. I mean, I love new, creative, different ideas. So we've been working on some football scheduling. That's really a place that Coach Rule and his staff, with us is working on. So nothing to report today, but I believe that the University of Nebraska will be very open to creative types of scheduling like that. I think the Big Ten Conference under Tony Petitti's leadership will also be interested in doing some different types of things that I think can help grow and advance the brand. But obviously for us, we're not going to give up home games. I mean, it would be really detrimental to the Lincoln community and to the state of Nebraska and to our athletic department finances if we moved a home game that ordinarily would be in Memorial Stadium. But other than that, looking at creative scheduling, ways to move around, advance our brand, thinking about recruiting. Coach Rule has very specific, visions around recruiting and areas he wants to be in. So I think you can see some of that.
Hey, and Nebraska's been very good about establishing a good culture for players, student athletes, whatever. Do you have to address that given the recent events in Northwestern? What's expected, not expected, that type of thing to kind of lay down in writing or what have you?
It's a great question. I mean, we have head coaches meetings every month. We meet with our student athletes regularly. We have a very active student athlete advisory committee. But the reality is these are issues all of us are facing. I said that a little bit earlier, but one of the things that's really happened is we've empowered the student athlete voice within our infrastructure in college athletics. That's a good thing, right? The reality is, all of us need to be very cognizant of some of these realities, and leadership matters. And so obviously we talk about these things, but when you hire coaches, you're hoping that you hire great leaders who understand what it means to invest in young people. So the other thing that you have to recognize is, when everybody has a voice, and social media, sometimes context matters. So rather than quickly making a judgment about certain things, I think we just went through that last week, didn't we? Context can matter sometimes, and but these are all real serious things, as you mentioned, Andy. And the University of Nebraska, I think, tries really, really hard. We try to serve our student athletes, no matter who they are, where they're from, what they look like. We're going to love, honor, and serve every one of them as best we possibly can.
And Trev, really quick, just with the 100th year of Memorial Stadium approaching, any big plans, people you're bringing in, just excitement for that?
Yeah, our marketing team's got a plan around that, and I think each week you'll see something else. We'll have some programming around that to really celebrate everything that the stadium has meant to us and for us, and we've tried to really go back into some of the history. I've got the original case for support of when they built the stadium in 1923. It was really cool. And so we'll integrate some of that and really celebrate. We have a lot to celebrate at the University of Nebraska, and our stadium's one of them.
Sid covered that first game, that first year, right?
Yeah, I know.
He looks great, though.